Wednesdays.
Wednesdays.
Myself and James Rapine, we do the national show, and still doing some analyst work here in Jacksonville for First Coast News, both of the affiliates here, the ABC and NBC affiliate. So yeah, we all digital now, and a little TV. I get to put my mug on the screen every now and then.
Yeah, no, it's exciting, right? We all kind of get to see our facial expressions when somebody else says something stupid or something like that. Like that's why I love actually, just interacting with someone face to face. You get to see the smile behind the voice,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and we recently launched our YouTube pages for our Locked On shows, and I had no idea I was making that many faces. So a lot of people have taken my face and from the TV and made memes out of it. I didn't have any idea that I was making all of these faces when I talk. So as it turns out, it's kind of become a thing. So I'm with it.
Nah, that's funny. Hopefully we can get one of those facial expressions out of this one, right?
You probably will.
Nah, but we're excited to have you, right? Because I've been a Jacksonville fan for a really long time, but I'm remote. I'm always, I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia, so I'm excited to kind of, talk to somebody from Jacksonville, and I know we have a lot of people that just in the area, love the Jaguars, right? So it's always good to kind of get somebody in-house. So
No doubt about it.
yeah, so today before we even get into anything, I just want to know, like, how excited is it to kind of move into a new generation of Jaguars? It's a new quarterback, and we're finally getting a new Jaguars football.
The opportunity and the optimism is absolutely incredible because covering the team for a number of years, whether it be on podcast or on terrestrial radio, one of the things I kind of became an expert at is grief counseling and
Right.
management. And it was just the same thing over and over. And there was just this hopelessness with this franchise that one day they needed a jolt of something to change it. They sort of needed the football gods to shine on them and for things to line up like an eclipse. Well, it happened in doubles. You get a guy like Urban Meyer, who, whether you think he's going to be successful or not, is a big ticket coach, a CEO type coach who at every turn, he's always been able to turn the program around. Most people talk about Florida and Ohio State, and they just go, well, he could recruit. Couldn't recruit at Utah, and he did well at Utah. Couldn't recruit at Bowling Green. So he has sort of a track record of making sure that things become more sound. And Laura, you followed the team enough to know that things weren't sound. Every week here, you even had coaches saying in press conferences that they were going to try to see what sticks. What football coach says that? Every good football coach always has a way to do things, and they stick to that way, even if it doesn't work, and eventually it turns around. And then you got Trevor Lawrence. You got a chance to get a generational talent at quarterback, the #1 overall pick. And it's just an unbelievable opportunity that those two things happen at the same time for this franchise. And
No, yeah, it's crazy. And, I think us as Jag fans, we kind of became lovers of just the game. These last like 10, 15 years, we've had to, get more into fantasy or more into like, hey, what other team do I want to watch this season? Because I know the Jags ain't gonna, fill my heart with happiness. So I've begun to kind of just, like actually the team being bad has allowed me to kind of flourish in other ways and kind of get more followers on Twitter with my takes throughout the NFL. So it's a blessing in disguise, but it's such a good feeling to know that now there's a new generation of talent. Is there a team that you like, or an AFC division or NFC division that you're going to watch this year? Or is there a team that you like to watch other than the Jaguars?
No, I grew up in the DMV and back and forth. So I was a Washington football team fan forever. I have to admit, though, probably over the last 7 or 8 years, due to their misfunction, you want to face there it is, due to their misfunction and dysfunction, I still used to always have that like chameleon eye looking over at the Washington football team. But they've had so much stuff go wrong in their front office, and they're trying to turn it around too. And I think they're on their way to do that. I don't even know their full depth chart. I could probably name every starter on defense and maybe 8 starters on offense. But when it comes to knowing their entire team, I've sort of lost interest in it. So I'm going to watch that. I'm going to watch the NFC East, obviously. I've called it the NFC least the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
It is just a matter of seeing who's going to be able to turn that thing around the quickest. Because when I grew up, the NFC East was the best conference. It was like the SEC of the NFL.
Yeah.
And now it's not like that anymore. So I'm interested to see a little bit if they can turn that around up there.
Yeah, and they have a pretty good defense, so it will be exciting to see, what they can do on the defensive side of the ball, and eventually they'll be able to turn it around. And but yeah, the NFC East, as you know, kind of I grew up around Philly, so always watching the NFC East, Eagles versus Cowboys, and Eli came in, so it's exciting to see if Saquon Barkley is going to do well, and basically just Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith, Micah Parsons. Dak Prescott, is he going to come back? Is Zeke just going to dominate like he always used to do? It's fun, exciting. So, all right, without further ado, let's jump into this Jaguars team. So, before we get into the first week, how do you feel about this depth chart, man? So you can see, I'm sharing my screen. Now, the first thing that jumps out at me, honestly, is the little amount of wide receivers, but the depth at defensive line and defensive tackle and the linebackers. So like, is that like a concern to you, or because we have the practice squad down here with wide receivers that are just filled up? Like, how do you feel like about this team right now, this depth chart?
Well, when Urban Meyer got here, I've warned people that when you take over a 1-15 team, you're not going to be able to fix everything in 1 year. And he was armed with a plethora of draft picks, and he was armed with the most salary cap room in the NFL. So what I sort of expected him to do was just increase the high-end level of talent with A-plus players, the guys that were available. And what he wanted to do when he got here, the first thing he said is, I need my defensive line to be in the top 25 percentile, in the top 1/4 of the league. And then he said they really wanted to revamp the defensive backs. They needed to fix the running back position. Obviously, the quarterback position was a no-brainer with Trevor. Surprisingly, he said that he thought the offensive line was solid. And that's the second year in a row that was said by 2 consecutive administrations, and I really have disagreed with him. But so he wanted to also add more speed and explosiveness, and that's where the Travis Etienne pick came out. But now that he's gotten hurt, they're scrambling on the practice squad and the waiver wire for fast guys. And I really think they blew an opportunity to get faster. Maybe they tried and they just weren't able to because the guys that they went after didn't come. But losing Etienne really hurts them in terms of having a shot to have a very, very explosive offense. But I think the defensive line, even though they may lack stars, they do have depth, and they've shown a propensity in the preseason to be able to stop the run, and that's something that they could not do in the past.
Yeah, man, they really are stopping the run this year, and it's exciting because the last couple of years, that's the only thing that's really held them back, right? So I'm glad that they're able to stop the the run now, and kind of staying on defense. Actually, you know what? Let me switch it up because I already brought these highlights in. You mentioned speed. Well, how do you feel about Tyron Johnson?
I like it. I like Tyron Johnson an awful lot. In fact, when I was watching the Chargers in the preseason, I was like, "Wow, that's a pretty good player." I didn't think he was going to be a guy who was going to be a casualty, and as it turns out, he was. And I think the Jaguars are very, very fortunate to get him. I think right away he comes in and he competes at the number 4 wide receiver spot, and that's because, like you said, they don't have a whole bunch of guys. But the main thing is he gives them the type of separation and suddenness that they really, really lack outside. So Urban Meyer the other day said that he doesn't want a slow team. He doesn't want to be identified with a slow football team. He doesn't want to be around a slow football team. They have guys that aren't slow in terms of 40 times in track speed. They're yet to really show that they can play fast, though. And what you need is game speed as opposed, because you think about the wide receivers. He says he wants speed. He wouldn't turn down DeAndre Hopkins. He wouldn't turn down Devontae Adams. He wouldn't turn down Keenan Allen. He wouldn't turn down any of those guys if they were offered to the Jaguars. And guess what they all have in common? None of them are speed burners, but they're good football players that know how to play the game and know how to get open.
But he doesn't know how to coach the NFL game yet. So I think he's kind of just going off of like, hey, I want to look at pure talent first, and then he can kind of ease his way into how to use them, because just because he has those guys doesn't mean he's going to necessarily know how to use them just yet, because the NFL, like coaching is just like elevated way high. So it's a lot easier to coach in college, because you're not playing against the best of the best. So I mean, I think he's doing a good job, because he doesn't want to blow all his money on guys that he doesn't know how to use yet. And that's another reason why I think he's putting a lot into this defensive line, so that the defense can kind of win him games as he eases into the offense, right?
Yeah, I can agree with that this is a learning year for him in terms of how they have to play and how they're going to learn how to get an identity. I think one of the things you hit on is absolutely correct, and that is when you're coaching at Florida or Ohio State, you obviously can make sure that you're one of the fastest teams in the country because you can recruit those guys. There's not much of a difference between the fastest team in the NFL and the slowest team in the NFL.
That's
You're
true.
probably talking about, if you're talking about Kansas City, okay, they got two guys. They got Miko Hardman, and of course they got Cheetah Hill. The thing is outside of that, are they really a fast team? No. They just have those two guys, and it changes the complexion of their team. So this isn't a case where you're just gonna have to go out, where you can just go out and get five of the fastest guys to play wide receiver. About 5 years ago, Buffalo had a track team of wide receivers when they had Goodman and all of those guys. They had an entire track team, and they weren't as successful as they are now, where they don't necessarily have a whole bunch of guys that are running around all over the place. They have guys that know how to play and know how to run routes. So being fast in the NFL isn't necessarily about guys on the outside. It's more about in your front seven, as well as your offensive linemen being athletic enough that when they go against a fast front seven, that they know how to cope and deal with it.
No, yeah, that's definitely true. That's definitely true. Like, moving on to the safety position, because right now that's a concern for me, to be honest. When we're gonna pull up a bunch of these plays, with the defense against the Cowboys, against the Saints, the two guys that you're seeing back there always is Jared Wilson and Josh Jones. And now they don't have either of them. So I want to know, have you heard anything? Because, have you heard anything about Jared Wilson actually being done? Because Urban Meyer was saying, oh, we're going to try to get something done with him, but he's not on the roster. So, are they really gone?
Yeah, they're gone. I mean, they're just not here. I was shocked that they were let go and that Andrew Wingard remained. And I think I want to say that it's about special teams, but then they already have Rudy Ford, as a special teams guy who played in Philly. So I was really shocked. I didn't even have Wingard making the final 53, and he's going to start Sunday. So maybe they saw something in practice. The eye in the sky doesn't lie. Maybe even though he doesn't have the talent that Andre Cisco has, I think their thinking is if at the very least we have a veteran at free safety early this year, we won't give up big plays based on assignment. If it happens, it'll just happen because of talent, but it won't be because of assignment. And I think right now, Andre Cisco is fast. But if you don't know where you're going, and I don't know if this is the case, but this is the only reason that he probably wouldn't be in the lineup. If you don't know where you're going, the last thing we need is someone who goes the wrong place quickly. So at least with Dewey Wingard, what you can get is a guy who might not make every play, but he won't give up the big play. Because what beats you when you're a young team are chunk plays. You can outplay a team the entire game, and if you give up 3 big plays in the deep middle of the field, changing field position or giving up touchdowns, it's a killer. So maybe the reason why Dewey is starting and the other kid isn't is because they're trying to get him up to snuff. And remember, he didn't play much last year because he tore an ACL. So now you're trying to get back into the groove playing. You're trying to, get your confidence back. And now the speed of the game is quicker than the last time you played, and you have a new defense to learn. So maybe that has something to do with it, but I'm absolutely shocked that Wingard is on the team and Jared Wilson isn't.
Yeah, and it just seems like they wouldn't have started them, or like maybe they would have started Wingard and Cisco, or at least like Rudy Ford in the beginning of the game in every single preseason game, but they didn't. They started Josh Jones and Jared Wilson. So it was like, if you wanted to see what those guys could do as a starter, why didn't they do that? That's why I feel like there's something deeper with these two safeties that, maybe we don't know something about. Like, I don't know. It just seems weird that they would continue to play those two guys and then just let them go. Like, why wouldn't you see them? Like, why wouldn't you see what Wingard is like in the, as a starter?
Maybe because in that last game, they already knew they were going to keep Wingard, and they put the other guys out on the field to see if they could play them to themselves in or play themselves out of a position. But I'm with you. I have concerns about that. I will tell you this, though. I was interacting with a young player, 2 or 3 days ago, and he told me he thought Rayshawn Jenkins was the best player on their defense. And then he goes, well, and maybe Miles Jack too. But he absolutely, and he's not a secondary player. So for him to say that, when guys give you that kind of information, that lets you know what they really feel about someone. And I think Rayshawn Jenkins is going to play a big role. But I'm with you 100%. It's weird. Yeah. They did a lot of things in the preseason that you usually can kind of get a beat on, and you usually we're not used to the way he operates and the way he talks and the way that they move, and we, when you're around a guy for a while, you can get a beat on and what it means and kind of draw some conclusions, but you can't really do that with him because everything's so new and he's kind of unpredictable.
Yeah, no, definitely. So now moving on to the running back position with this depth chart. Do you like the running backs that, they have right now? And do you think maybe Murray should have been someone that they approached? Or do you kind of like, what they have going with, James Robinson and, the rest of this depth chart? Let me see. I'm going to pull it up real quick.
Yeah, to me, Murray was redundant. And if you want the same type of guy, that's fine. They signed Duke Johnson to the practice squad, and I think that's really to get him up to snuff with what they expect from him and running the offense and learning the plays. I really would be surprised and shocked if Duke Johnson wasn't on the active roster because of the element that he gives. What they're trying to do is replace Travis Etienne with 2 or 3 different people. Yeah. That's where you see Tavon Austin, you see Duke Johnson, you redundant, and what they expect from him and running with 2 or 3 different people. Yeah. That's where you see Tavon Austin, you see Duke Johnson, you see Tyron Johnson, you see all of these guys where it looks like they're trying to piece together the one guy that they're going to miss this season because of a Liz Frank injury. So that doesn't bode well for the roster, because now you have to make decisions based on adding certain elements, but you have to do it with 3 people, and it takes up roster space. The other thing is to me, I didn't want him to sign a redundant player. And what I mean by that is both of the running backs now that are listed as co-starters with James Robinson and Carlos Hyde, both of those guys are guys that are going to run off tackle. They're going to ground and pound. Both of them are very good in pass pro, and a rookie running back needs that. But they don't have the explosiveness at that position. Yeah. The Jaguars they're going to have to get all of their plays from Trevor Lawrence from the outside. And if they failed at anything this offseason, is they depended on one guy to be a speed guy in ETN. And really, if you want to be fast, you have to add more speed at the skill position, and they failed to do it.
Yeah, like on this play right here, that they give Carlos Hyde the toss, and it just seems like he's running in cement, man. Like, as he's trying to get to the outside, and he's being patient.
You really want to see him stick his foot and go. He could have got maybe 2 or 3 more yards with that, trying to stretch that out. And there was nothing for him to run to. So here's the thing, Lori. Maybe when they finally get their starting offensive line in totality on the field together, like all of the guys, I think, except Brandon Linder, have played 1 or 2 snaps here or there, but they haven't played together. So when you talk about the O-line, you always talk about the C's, the continuity, the cohesiveness, and all of that stuff. It has to, you want to see what it looks like when they're all together, as opposed to just having maybe 2 guys here or 3 guys here, and then guys not playing, and then they're having rookies play. Walker Little played a lot, and they're having second-year players like Ben Barch. But that line, let me tell you, we talked about that line. I got to tell you this. In the last 2 years, the draft was swole full of offensive linemen that are going to play for a very long time. These have been two really good offensive line classes. Last year was probably more top heavy, but this year at the Senior Bowl, Jim Nagy, who runs the Senior Bowl, says that he had double-digit guys that are going to play for two contracts in league. The Jaguars drafted Walker Little in the second round this year and Ben Barch in the fourth round last year. In 2 straight years,
not much.
When they had 21 or 22 choices, they had 12 draft picks last year, and I think 9 or 10 this year. They only took 2 offensive linemen in 2 straight years. You need to do that in regular years when you're trying to team build. But in years where they're the draft was really strong at those positions, they didn't address the offensive line with the exception of 2 guys. I think in the long run, it's going to end up being a tragic mistake with them thinking that they're set at the offensive line, set to compete for a division title. You might be okay. To win it, you can't be okay on the offensive line. You have to be very, very good or great.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look here, they're not bad in terms of, just I don't want to say the depth because there's not really too many guys here, like in terms of depth, but I don't mind Tyler Shatley. I think he did well. Ben Barch, he's kind of okay. Walker Little actually got a lot better towards the end of preseason, but also, the Cowboys didn't play their starters. So, he did hold his own by the end of preseason, but those first 2 games were really shaky. I'm not a fan of like Will Richardson, and I just wish they got more guards, just better quality guards, even like a couple years ago, because now we have to rely on their cohesiveness, and they've been playing together for a couple years now, but injuries are bound to happen. So I am a little nervous about the offensive line, especially in the next couple years. You can't just draft rookies and expect them to be good. It's going to take a little while, like Walker Little. So I am with you 1000% on the offensive line. I wish they kind of had a little more depth and got another tackle in there, and another guard as well. But Walker Little didn't do too bad when the Cowboys when they went to Dallas. So
the thing with Walker Little is he's played well in practice. In practice, he's looked all world. But then when they get to the game, it didn't transfer. So Urban even said after the first preseason game, he said Walker struggled because he played with low hands. He says, I don't know where that came from. I've never seen that. He didn't do that in practice. And I noticed that when I went back and watched some of the tape, that whenever he engaged the defensive end, if you watch, his hands kind of come up from his thighs and he engages the defensive end at the defensive end's hips.
Yeah, and you see even right here that they're low.
Right there.
You see, it's like he's like pushing down an invisible, I don't know, table or something. But then as he picks them back up, it's a little too late at that point. Like the leverage is already lost. He's bent over, and the worst thing for offensive line is to be bent over like this.
And so that's why on some plays too, you'll notice even on running plays where he has pushed off the ball and he's pushed backwards. I think there might be one play where he went 5 yards back and the defensive end drove him back. And that's all because of leverage, and that's all because of the way that he plays with his hands low. So they got to get him to when he gets into the game to take what he does in the gym. They call, you shoot in the gym and then you have to play under the lights. Well, he has to translate the things that he does, the habits that he does from the practice field. He has to take them to the game. And I think that's something a young guy has to learn.
Yeah, no doubt. One of those, I know exactly what play you're talking about. I thought I had it up here, but yeah, we'll see. But some of those plays, he's not doing bad, but it's definitely up and down. Which brings me to an up and down player like Shaquille Griffin. I talked to some guys from Seattle, and they were kind of happy that they let him go because he was a player that you could rely on. Or you couldn't really rely on. He could do fabulous one game, and then the next game, it's like he's like, what happened? So I'm actually a little bit nervous for him, and hopefully, Jenkins can kind of help him out. Just in terms of being back there, in the secondary.
I'm nervous too, and the reason why is because one, I think he's a great young man with a lot of energy, and he does great interviews. But the thing about, I know this fan base, man, and the one thing about him is if you talk and speak really well and you're fun and you're charismatic, Everybody will love you until you start not matching that up with your play, and then they want to tell you to shut up. That's just the way the Jaguar fans are. They're not going to want it. I remember. You
That's
remember this?
everybody though, right?
I know it, right? But you remember? Do you remember everyone? I know I did. I used to love hearing Ed Hockley explain why he was making the decision. Basically, he was explaining the rules. Until the one time when Denver was playing, I believe they were playing the Chargers, and Ed Hockley actually had to admit that he made a mistake because he blew a whistle or he called a play. So after that day, nobody ever wanted to hear anything Ed Hockley had to say. It's like, shut up already. So and
Yeah.
Gus Bradley was that way. He was a good talker, great talker, great talker. But when the losing came, the talk just seemed like it was very, very shallow. So the thing with Shaquille is I don't see the pedestal they put him on matching up with what we saw in the preseason. And if that's the case, they're going to turn on him real quick because the most talented DB they have is CJ Henderson.
Oh
he
yeah.
does things physically that nobody else can do. And if they can just make sure he stays engaged, because he's a little bit of an introvert, he's not a bad character guy. He's just quiet. He stays to himself. I think Urban wants him to be fired up all the time, and maybe that's just not in his personality. But you can't, if you're Shaquille, you can't get beat deep. You can't let Marquez Callaway just, just untouched, running right past him, like on that play. And everybody blamed that on Tyson. But if you think about it, Tyson was the off corner who came from the other side of the field.
I know. He was actually, he just kept his head up and tried to make a play on the ball. It was definitely Griffin who just flat out got beat. It was a race. It was a foot race, and he waited a little bit too long. Like if you see here, he's watching the backfield, and then now he kind of is like, oh crap, I need to go because this guy is about to beat me one-on-one, and it's already too late at that point.
And he opened his hips. If you watch the replay again, he opens his hips 5 yards away from the guy, and he still got outrun. And that's to me that's a red flag. And I hope for his sake, because imagine AJ Brown and Julio Jones doing that. That's going to be a problem. Imagine when you play Arizona with those guys. That's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Because D-Hop and those guys, they see all of this stuff. And if they see you open up early or late or catch you flat-footed, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and that's why I think that CJ by the hopefully in the beginning of the season or in mid-season, he becomes corner number one. And I got like a little highlight tape right here of all of his plays where he made some really good tackles. He has closing speed. He can read the play really well. And here it's just the fact that he holds the running back from going to the outside and pushes him towards the inside. It's just that little stuff. So he doesn't have to make the tackle. The guys on the inside could be the ones to make the tackle. And then this is the number one play. Or actually, no, this is not the main play that
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about that backside. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And everybody's like, oh well, he that was his guy. He didn't really make a read. You know how easy it is for him to just kind of sit back? But he knew that nobody was there, and he did his job to basically go past the line of scrimmage and make a tackle, not for a loss, but it was close, man. That was awesome.
There's only 3 or 4 guys in the league that make that play where he made that play at, because a lot of guys would have just run straight down the line and met the guy at the 30-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And those 4 yards is the difference in down and distance and how you get a team off the field. Many guys would not have had the instincts or the speed and the gear to make sure that he didn't try to run straight down the line and meet the guy at a spot, but he ran after the guy and was able to tackle him. If you think about it, the line of game was the 30-yard line. The average corner in the NFL would have met that guy at the 30-yard line, but he didn't do it. So I just think that's tremendous, and it shows his ability. Anybody who thinks that's routine is out of their mind and don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah, man. Like if you look at this here, he's step for step, hip on hip with this guy. He turns at the exact moment that the receiver makes his turn inside.
Now watch this. If you go back to the beginning of that, when we watched Shaquille Griffin turn his hips 5 yards before, like he's right on this guy. He didn't open his hips out until the guy got even with him, and then the guy couldn't get past him anyway. That's talent. That's pure talent. That's what a number one corner looks like.
Yep. And I think he will be the number one corner. So, so basically moving on to this week, right? So there's gonna be some matchups that I'm looking forward to seeing. So LaVisca is my main guy that I'm gonna say is gonna ball out. Which wide receiver do you think is gonna do the best this week? Marvin Jones, DJ Chark? Do they kind of ease him in early, or do you think LaVisca is gonna be the one that is gonna have the best in terms of the stat sheet?
It's going to be interesting because one, Trevor was splitting so many reps in the training camp with Gardner Minshew, they didn't really have a chance to get their identity. But if I can say this, if it was someone that it looked like he had a little bit of rapport with, it was the veteran Marvin Jones, and I think he raised the floor of that room and was elected a captain. And it was because for a reason, and that's because of his work ethic and because of how he prepares, and he takes stuff from the meeting room to the practice field and from the practice field to the game. So I think Trevor looks that way first. I think by design, they're going to try to hit some big stuff to DJ Chark because he's going to have to be their big play guy. And the guy that you're going to see probably be able to do things on his own with a lot of quick outs is LaVisca. When they need, if it's in the preseason, the first snap Trevor took, he was sacked. It was 2nd and 17. You know what they did? They ran a quick out to LaVisca, and he got 10.
Yeah. This was it right here. That sack fumble, and then the next play they push him out.
Bang! Get the ball out. Boom. That's right. And now he goes up and he turns this into a 3rd and 7, and they make the first down. How many times in the past over the last decade that if the Jaguars got a negative play on first down, how many times have you seen them convert a 2nd and 17? It was almost like, let's just get ready to punt. But now because of Trevor Lawrence, they have a shot that even if they have a negative play on offense with a long down the distance to go, he has the talent. And the first thing they'll probably try to do is do some stuff for LaVisca to do some run after the catch.
Yeah, no, and I think he's gonna be, he's gonna be a slot guy that's gonna do a lot of like quick slants or those bubble screens, and he's already dragging guys, honestly. And this play, I don't even know, was this no, I don't think. We're gonna see
I know which one you're talking about. I think they were on like the 30-yard line, and he took them down inside the 10, but he drugged guys like 10 yards.
Yeah. No, I'm not even sure. That was his touchdown there. Right. But yeah, that play was something else. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. But yeah, I think LaVisca is going to be, a huge part of the offense. So, are you looking forward to, actually, I think they're going to be more of a passing team this week, even though Urban likes to establish the run, because I don't think the Texans have great DBs. Like if I sent over, the sheet showing their defensive rankings, points allowed, they're 27th, yards allowed, they're 30th, turnovers forced, they're last, interceptions, they were last. Actually, rushing yards allowed, they were last as well. So they'll probably give up a lot in rushing. But I just think it's going to be a big passing game this week.
So here's the thing. It's good to look at what they did last year. We have to remember that they're totally changing. And just like the Jaguars are going from a base 4-3 under and they're moving to a multiple front, but mainly a 3-4, they're doing it the opposite way in Houston. They were a 3-4 team for a number of years, and now they're going to the Lovie Smith, Tony Dungy, Monty Kiffin defense. They're a 4-3 team who's probably going to have those two safeties split, and you're going to probably see a Tampa 2 look. If that's the case, look out for them trying to confuse Trevor with some stuff. What do you do when you have a Tampa 2? You attack the seam.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to see them early attack the seam, but in order to do that, you have to establish the run and make the Mike linebacker honor the run and stay home. Because if you don't, that window gets very, very small and can be very confusing for a young quarterback. So what I'm looking forward to him doing is trying to establish the run early, then going pass heavy for 2 quarters, and then if they're winning, to come back to the run to try to close the game. I think they have way more talent than Houston does, and I would be shocked if the Jaguars did not win this game.
Yeah, no, definitely. Same here. I think that I think they're going to be able to attack the seams, like you're saying. I think the tight ends are going to be used a little bit more than they've ever been used in the past. Well, not ever in the past, because obviously the Jags have had some pretty good tight ends in the past, but just recent past, they haven't really used O'Shaughnessy as much as they could have or should have. And I think Manhurts is going to be a pretty good part of the receiving offense as well. So I think up the seams, they're going to, make some play calls like that. They'll also, run some curl routes, some hitches. They're going to maybe even run 12 personnel. So you'll see against Tampa 2, it's good to kind of have two tight ends there. Maybe one guy, a Y leak to kind of block at first, and then that tight end kind of comes across the field late and gets them deep. And they're gonna force their safeties to make a decision. So either they're gonna guard that guy going deep, or the tight end comes late and kind of runs straight up the seam, and they're not gonna be able to get there. So yeah, I'm excited for this game. What do you think? Like, if you had to say a score, what do you think the score would be?
The one I gave last night on my crossover podcast was 33-17. And I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to say that the Jaguars moved down the field, but they use Josh Lambo a lot. He gets 4 field goals to go along with 3 touchdowns. And the Jaguars winning 33-17. I think they'll be in full control by the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna go with 24-17. Yeah, I think the Jaguars just are gonna be a little bit too much for the Texans. The Jaguars can stop the run game, and that's just about. I mean, I'm not gonna say that's all they have, because Brandon Cooks is a really good player. But I just think that they're gonna rely on the run, and Jaguars are gonna shut that game plan down. They're gonna be forced to kind of switch it up at the half, but I think it's gonna be a little too late. I think the Jaguars win it 24-17. So, you have any last minute thoughts on this game?
No, just glad to join you here. And obviously, the key to the game is protecting the football. I don't ever say don't fumble. I just say protect the football, because I think don't fumble has a negative connotation. But protect the football, treat the football like it's gold. Get off the field on third down, no dumb penalties. They say they want people to play hard and fast without actually being, you don't have to be dumb. You don't have to be so aggressive that you just bite anything, So hopefully what happens is they play mistake-free for the most part and protect the football, get off the field on third down. If they do that, I think they have a real good chance to win.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think turnovers is takeaways is the main thing that you want to do. For any defense, you want to have those takeaways, and whoever has the most takeaways usually wins the game. So if they can limit the Texans' takeaways, and the defense can kind of step up and get a sack, fumble, maybe recover that, or hopefully able to get an interception. Maybe Cisco can get in there and make a couple plays and actually pick it off and win that starting job. That'll be cool, right? So I think that's going to be my maybe a hot take or prediction for this game. Yeah, no, thank you so much for joining. Ponytails talking Pigskins. You don't have a ponytail, but maybe we can.
I did at one point. I had one. I had a little man bun a couple of years ago, and my sons, they picked. It was a tribute to Nipsey Hussle. I had my hair braided, and I took the braids out, and I had a man bun, and I got laughed at by my own kids, so I had to get rid of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they're cruel.
I hear you. No, kids are so mean, honestly, but they are honest, right? So it kind of makes you reevaluate your whole life when you talk to a kid.
Yep.
They're like,
facts.
It's crazy. But thank you so much for joining. And I'll be talking to you. We'll definitely, have you on again, if not more than usual. So it was awesome. Yep. Thank you so much for joining. You want to make a plug, a Locked On? What you got going?
Locked On Jaguars, Locked On NFL. And you can just hit me up on Twitter at Shop Talking Wig. That's ShopTalkingWigg.
All right. Thank you so much. We're going to let you go, and I'll make sure to post all that info on this YouTube channel right below the comments. Definitely make your comments. Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter and me if you like it. So thank you so much, guys. See you next week.